Bitcoin has been significantly started to be used for a different purpose than that is used for money. Even if you care or not, Bitcoin is being used for ordinals. Now, in future, if the ordinal space once again starts, we can say, oh, it will be there only for 1 year. What if 1 year more people can't run Bitcoin, nothing will happen? You can just ignore it. And that kind of lethargic attitude decreases the adoption of Bitcoin very significantly.
Hello, Delcin. Welcome to the Bitcoin Dialectic.
Yeah, thank you so much.
We sort of met each other online because of a WhatsApp group, because I had a few questions and you had a few answers to those questions. And then I realized I wanted to have a proper discussion about this.
Sure.
I don't understand how the code of Bitcoin works, like how Bitcoin Core works or how Bitcoin Knots works. What's the difference? What's the disagreement? I don't understand why they are bickering so much. And then there was a tweet that I read recently, which I shared with the group, that, or someone else shared with the group, that sometime in August, there's going to be an update that is going to be rolled out for Bitcoin Knots folks, which would mean that they start rejecting blocks of a certain kind, which would mean that the Bitcoin network would then fork off.
Yes.
Now, I have a bunch of questions regarding that as well. So I think we can start off by talking about Bitcoin Core and Knots and how all of that works. And then we can dive into what's going to happen in August and what it means for Bitcoin.
Okay.
That sounds good?
Sounds good. So, like, I would assume that you're kind of a layman when it comes to programming, right? So you're not into software development and how GitHub everything works. So yeah, and that's like vast majority of the people, and that's okay. It's our duty to basically help everyone to understand this, because we as a programmers as well have learned a lot from through open source. So the idea of the open source is that you allow the people to freely read and share the code. All right. So before open source, when you download a software application, you're only downloading a binary that you can click and execute and run on your program. Okay. But technically, if you are a crazy good programmer, you could reverse engineer that program, meaning you could write the source code which would compile to the exact program. But in most cases, it is very costly or like realistically not possible kind of thing to do. Okay. So by open source, people will publish both the code and the binary. So when you as a layman download the Bitcoin node from either Bitcoin Core or Bitcoin Knots, you're only downloading the binary, the compiled version of the code available in GitHub. Okay. So this is like one fundamental difference that people need to register. All right. So now that's the idea of repositories.
I have a question here already.
Yeah.
When you say that when you go and download Bitcoin Core or Bitcoin Knots, you are downloading only the binary. So it's similar to downloading some app of Play Store.
Exactly.
But Bitcoin is supposed to be somehow different, right? Like Bitcoin is supposed to be open source. What's the difference then?
The difference is that you could go to the Bitcoin Core GitHub, download the source code, compile it, and you can match that with the binary that you have downloaded. For example, if you're using a Mac, you download the binary of that Mac, okay, and you have it separately. Then you download the corresponding source code, okay, and you compile the source code. And if you able to compare the binary that you get from the compiled software versus the directly downloaded binary, you will be able to verify that both are the same.
Okay, I got it. And that's the difference between Bitcoin and the other apps. Like an app like Facebook or Instagram would hide their original source code.
Exactly. This problem exists, I believe, in Signal as well. For example, the client software is open source, and even in the discussions, the people weren't able to match the compiled the client binaries versus the binaries that they download from the App Store. But with Bitcoin, you will be able to perfectly match the binaries. So why is it important? Because let's say you have heard about something like hacking. People are able to inject a malicious code into the software, for example, stuff like that. Okay, so from the outside, both apps, the compromised and the real actual software, appears to work the same, right? Appears to work the same in most contexts, but they might differ in some crucial ways. Okay, for example, that injected code will behave differently. Okay, and the user may not be aware of it. How can you be sure that your code doesn't have any malicious content in it? Only by compiling and comparing the binaries. Okay,
Question.
so yeah.
What if the source code that has been posted on GitHub that has
Mhm.
been compromised somehow?
Yes, you should be able to read the code to verify. That's why, as a Bitcoiner, you need to learn how to code. That I would say to everyone, but that would be very controversial. You should be. I mean, of course, no single person. Even I have some. I mean, I can code C++, but even for me to thoroughly verify is not possible. But at least if I know how to read the code and how to check whether, for example, the BIP-110, the changes that they made, right, whether it is working to some extent correctly, what are the intentions and how the discussions are going, all those stuff, I would be able to, let's say, verify some percentage. All right, so all the interested people, they were able to verify it to some extent, right? We can be sure that it has, like, the code has more eyes and more scrutiny than any closed source code. Okay, that's how the security of the code improves. For example, if someone has injected malicious code directly into the GitHub, the people that are responsible as a maintainers and the PR reviewers, they should be able to detect it. That's why it is a responsibility of every one of us to actually go and verify the source code, to verify the PR, right? So the responsibility lays on us. Okay, and it is precisely because most of the Bitcoiners have not thoroughly verified the changes and get involved, we are in this stage right now.
What is the stage that we are in?
What is the stage of? Because of the proliferation of spams. For example, the 40% of the UTXOs are or dust transactions, the transactions with dust outputs.
What is dust outputs? What is spam?
Yeah, yeah. The understanding the dust output is very important. Okay. Um, I believe you'll be consistently doing Bitcoin transactions.
Not very often. I'm a hodler, so I don't do many transactions. I never spent any Bitcoin in my life, for instance.
Yeah. Okay, you have never spent any Bitcoin, but you should learn to. I mean, you should spend. All right, people will, for example, as much as possible, like you are spending some money in whatever form. Okay, people need to start spending Bitcoin as money.
I get the
Right.
argument for why we should do it, but the practicalities around it are
To some extent, like it's not like 100%. If no one can do it right now because the Bitcoin adoption has not reached that point yet, but we should try to encourage it
I'm not
to some
talking
way.
about adoption here, Delcin. I'm talking
Mm-hmm.
about just so if I spend Bitcoin, I will have to keep track of what was the price at which I bought it, what is the price at which I'm selling, because when I spend, I'm making a sell event. I have to do
Mm-hmm.
the capital gains tax calculation, I have to report it to the government. And because I believe in Bitcoin's potential as an asset to grow in
Mm-hmm.
value, I have no incentive to spend it. I get that it's a selfish stance to take, but
Okay.
it's combined with the hassle of spending that I just feel I have zero incentive to spend right now.
Okay, whatever. Like that's not relevant to this discussion right now. The thing is, when you spend Bitcoin, okay, there are inputs and there are outputs. Okay, are you aware of the fundamental structure of a Bitcoin transaction?
I am, but I would love if you can just go over it quickly.
Okay, so Bitcoin uses UTXO model. Can I use a writing board of something?
If you have something with you that you can display, why not?
Yeah. Bitcoin follows what we call an UTXO model. All right. So a transaction, Bitcoin is fundamentally made of a Bitcoin block. Okay. So when we talk about a block is nothing but a list of transactions. Okay. At a high level. So a transaction will look like this. As an UTXO is spent, it is removed from the UTXO set, and every new transaction output is added to the UTXO set.
Fair. Okay.
So these are kind of the relative the kind of the measures that I gave you. Okay. So for example, traditionally, if a transaction output is less than 1,000 sats, we will usually consider it as a dust output.
Is this something, I'm guessing this is not on the level of the blockchain, like it's not on the level of the protocol, it's
the mempool level.
It's on the
It's at the
mempool level.
Yeah. You can have a zero, I believe you can have a zero output transaction.
Okay, can you explain what the mempool is and how it is different from the actual blockchain?
Yeah, I will do it. Let's try to understand this dust limit first. Okay. So usually, if it is less than 1,000,
who created this limit? Who created this dust limit?
Dust limit is just convention. Okay, it's just kind of like a consensus among the people involved in the Bitcoin code development and the discussion as well. Okay. For example, think about it. 1,000 sat. How much is the value of 1,000 sat in rupee terms?
Less than 100 rupees, right?
Yes, it is less than 100 rupees. Like 500 sats. So it depends on the transaction size. Okay, like the fee rate, for example. So the dust limit is kind of a crucial measure. Like if you 1,000 sats, 500 sats, it differs. Okay, it depends on the size of the output.
But dust is a limit on the size of the output, right?
Yeah, dust because the fee rate can be like very high. For example, the fee rate can typically go to 3 or 4 sats per virtual byte, right? It's just a convention. Let's just keep it, because it doesn't make sense to create 100 rupee value of a Bitcoin output right now.
Okay, I'll take this on at face value for now, that there's a reason why small outputs are considered to be dust.
Because for example, if you have 100 sat output, okay, and if you try to spend it, all right, and if the fee rate is, let's say, 2 sat per virtual byte, you will spend more. You need to add more inputs to spend this. For example, you are paying more to spend this output. So there is no point in creating this output in the first place.
So I will not be able to spend this output alone. I will have to add other outputs to it so that I have enough fee to pay to make the transaction.
Basically, you are making a transaction that loses you money.
Yeah.
So it doesn't make sense. The idea is that doesn't make sense to create small output values.
Okay, which is why they are labeled as dust.
Exactly.
Fair.
All right, doesn't make sense. At a high level, it doesn't make sense to create. I mean, people can hypothetically say, what if Bitcoin goes, let's say, 100 million in value, USD in value? That's when it goes to that stage, this 1,000 sats will be valuable. All right, but right now we are not at that point. We have to talk about the economy of running a node as well.
But just a little addition on that, even if it goes to 100 million US dollars per Bitcoin and 1,000 sats suddenly has a lot of dollar value, or 100 sats, let's say, suddenly has a lot of dollar value, but on the level of Bitcoin, when you make a transaction, when you try to spend this UTXO with 100 sats in it, you will still have to pay fees in sats, in Bitcoin.
Yeah, sats. But the thing is that we can assume that the fee rate will decrease considerably when we go to that point.
What is the smallest transaction size that you can make, like a simple single UTXO to single UTXO no change transaction?
Probably around 100, I think it is like 100 to 200 virtual byte. I don't remember it exactly right now.
And the least possible fee rate per virtual byte is 1 sat per virtual byte, right?
No, that is the mempool level. In the consensus level, you can spend a transaction at 0 fee.
Okay.
That's the thing. for example, in future, when the price of Bitcoin goes to that point, we can expect the fee rate to reduce drastically as well, because the cost of electricity will be very cheap. That's kind of the assumption. I mean, that's kind of one heuristic. But these are all what we call as heuristics. But right now, it doesn't make sense to create 1,000 sat outputs from an economical standpoint.
Okay, I
If
buy
you
this
want to
argument for now.
yeah, if you want to make 1,000 sats output, you should be using something like Lightning.
Fair.
You have no business doing that kind of transaction in on chain.
It doesn't make sense economically for
Exactly.
you, but it's up to you. Like, it's your wish.
Yeah, it's your wish, but no, you can't expect the node runners to bear that burden, because the UTXO set plays a crucial role in in the hardware, in the infrastructure which is required to run a node.
Okay.
Okay, because previously you could run a Bitcoin node in a 4 GB RAM, right? Now, if you want to have a reliable kind of a node up and running, you need at least 16 GB RAM.
Oh.
You need 16, I mean, 8 GB RAM, you could do it, but 16 GB is required if you need your node to be up in like a day or two. Okay, so this is the cost of running the Bitcoin node, and this RAM size of the required RAM is directly proportional to the UTXO set size.
Okay.
Okay, and when we talk about the UTXO set size, there is this another Bitcoin node which is in active development, which is called LibBitcoin. All right, so it doesn't uses the UTXO model for, so that developer, which I believe is Eric, some name with B, I don't remember it, but yeah, so he claims that you can have a Bitcoin node up and running in like 4 or 6 hours, and you don't need that kind of a RAM, something like that. And his argument is essentially that we don't even have to worry about this kind of a problem. Okay, but my goal is to actually learn how it works and how I want to study the software, and due to some my personal commitments, it's getting delayed. So by this year end, I will have a thorough understanding of how that kind of like the software works. Right now, I believe I have like sufficient understanding how Bitcoin Core or Knots works. Okay, so this is like we can have it in a side note, right, for a future study. But right
Okay.
now, if we are running Bitcoin Core or Bitcoin Knots, you need like 16 GB RAM to have a reliable. I mean, to expect your node to be up and running in 1 or 2 days,
Okay. Fair.
provided reliable bandwidth. All right, internet connection. Yeah.
Fair. So one thing we've covered, which was the dust output. The second thing
Yes.
you mentioned was spam.
Yes. Yes. So spam, the concept of spam was very clear even to the Bitcoin Core developers till 2017 or 18, I guess. Okay, till 2020, because they were very critical about mempool filters during that time. Okay, so only one developer, what is his name, Peter Todd. Only Peter Todd
I've heard this name before.
was vocal against mempool filter. Sorry, against mempool filter.
This episode is powered by Bitshala. A lot of people discover Bitcoin and then ask, what's next? If you're a developer in India, Bitshala is the answer to that question. Bitshala is a grassroots education initiative run by Indian Bitcoiners to help developers learn Bitcoin the right way. Bitshala offers a paid fellowship to selected participants to work closely with experienced mentors, contribute to real world open source projects, and build credibility within the Bitcoin ecosystem. If that sounds interesting to you, check out the link in the description. People keep asking me where to buy Bitcoin safely in India. I use GetBit for all my Bitcoin purchases. It's the one I recommend to friends and family as well. GetBit is India's first Bitcoin only exchange. No distractions, no casino coins, only Bitcoin. You can set up a Bitcoin SIP with GetBit starting at just rupees 100, which makes stacking sats really easy. And whenever you're ready, you can withdraw your Bitcoin to your own private wallet for free, so you don't ever have to worry about a hack. If you want to check it out, you can use my code DVJBTC for 30% off on platform fees for the first 3 months. The link is in the description. What is mempool filter?
Yeah. For example, this dust limit is a mempool filter. Okay. So what does it do is the nodes. What is the role of the Bitcoin nodes? What is the role of Bitcoin nodes? I mean, tell me.
It's a question for me. Okay, awesome.
Yeah.
See, this is going to be very revealing of how little I actually understand Bitcoin on a technical level, but I'll still give this a shot. The role of nodes is, I think, multi-part. One part, which is obvious to me, is to maintain a copy of the blockchain. So it's a decentralized network of ledgers, right? So you maintain a copy of the
Exactly.
ledger. That is one part of it. The second part of it is that you also are verifying transactions, you're verifying blocks. So I don't know, maybe it's already encompassed in the first role that I described, because if you want to,
It is already encompassed in the first one.
yeah. Apart from that, nodes also determine what the code of Bitcoin is. So if nodes with consensus agree to make a change to the code that they are running, so on that level they are also determining what Bitcoin is.
Yeah, exactly. Then
Is there something to do with mempool as well?
yeah, relaying transactions. This is very crucial. Relaying transactions. Okay, so there are like minor. So these three are like the very important core things that are known as. Okay, and
Just
for our
one
discussion,
thing I would like to add before we dive into this. So for those who are listening and who don't know what mempool is, can you quickly explain?
yeah, I'm coming to that. I'm coming to that.
Okay, perfect.
I will explain that. I'm coming to that. It has everything to do with relaying transactions. So, for example, who are miners?
This is also a question for me, I'm guessing.
Exactly.
Okay.
Miners, yeah. Because I need to have an understanding of how much I should tell, right? Yeah. So
Fair.
that's what mine.
So the way I understand it, a miner is someone who is putting in the energy and the compute and is participating in the race to find the nonce that will ensure that a block which is typically filled with transactions, although a miner has a choice to mine an empty block as well.
Exactly.
But a block, whatever it contains, the SHA-256 hash of that block fulfills the difficulty criteria of the Bitcoin network at that point in time. So the miner basically tries out different combinations of different nonces.
Yeah, that's enough. That's enough. Basically, proof of work, and they're doing the proof of work for their rewards.
Correct.
Okay? That's it. So why does a miner need to include a transaction?
He doesn't need to, but there is a benefit to doing that because he gets fees for the transactions that he includes.
Exactly. So fees from transactions to maximize reward.
Correct.
To maximize rewards. All right. So yeah, but a miner can mine a block which is shall just be consensus valid, which means he cannot decide to include all the transactions from his mempool. I will explain what mempool is. Okay. What all the available transactions, all the transactions that has been relayed to him. You don't understand the meaning of the word relay?
Would be great if you can explain.
Yeah, exactly. So a Bitcoin, first of all, I'll come here. So now we need, so a Bitcoin, let's say these boxes, or let me use a circle. Okay, so box means block. So these are kind of the nodes. All right. So currently these nodes are spread out geographically all throughout the world. So there are nodes. I mean, you can start a node to simply accept the blocks.
So you just maintain a copy of the blockchain and you do nothing else.
Yeah, you do nothing else, and this is sufficient to check whether the transaction that you are interested in has been confirmed or not. Okay, and you can just simply have listen. I mean, you can simply accept the blocks. You don't have to transfer. You don't have to relay any blocks, or relay means the process of sending a message to all your peers. Okay, so each Bitcoin node is connected to some set of peers. It doesn't mean that they have to be connected to all the peers, all the Bitcoin nodes available.
Okay, so each node can decide which other nodes it wants to be connected to.
Exactly, they can decide.
Okay, and then
Okay,
they keep communicating. It's called gossip, right?
kind of. They just keep communicating gossip. Yeah, exactly, that's exactly correct. Okay, so they exchange the messages, the new messages that they receive. For example, this node might be connected to this node, so this they for a it receives a message in this direction, and then it relays the message to here, and then it relays the message to here, and so on. So this is how the blocks propagate throughout the network, because there are like more than 20,000 nodes which are active right now. Okay, and there are more than 1 lakh like kind of nodes which don't participate in the relay. Okay, so there are like quite a few number of nodes, and each node will have, let's say, at most 10 or 20 kind of peers by default. Now I'm not being precise here. Okay, I'm not being precise here, but we should be able to find this information like easily. I'm just explaining at a conceptual level. All right, so each node can have a, let's say, number of peers from which they receive the message, and the number of peers to which they send the message.
Okay.
Okay, so this is how the transactions, the new transactions and the new blocks are propagated throughout the network.
Okay, that's relaying.
Yeah, that's a relay. That's
Okay.
called relaying. Like transferring the new messages is called relaying. So the new messages to the peers is called relaying.
And this messages, it's just blocks, or is it also just individual transactions sometimes?
It can be blocks, it can be individual transactions, and it can be about health status as well. For example, how do you know that the peer that you're connected to is actually up and running? There could be an internet issue. There could be, for example, your peer could have shut down like without informing you. There are so many issues that might have happened, right? It might get physically destroyed due to some earthquake or whatever. So that's why it's very important to have nodes spread throughout the entire globe to have a fault tolerance, what we call, because despite, let's say, geographic catastrophe, catastrophe or some military action or whatever, at the end of the day, let's say the more number of nodes are there, the more reliable Bitcoin network is.
Fair.
And this process is called relaying.
Fair. Got it. We can go back
Okay.
up.
Yeah. And a miner is supposed to run their own nodes. Then only they will be able to be up to date with the blockchain and the transactions.
Yes, makes sense.
Okay. But currently, majority of the people with their hash power don't act as miners.
Don't act as miners or don't act as nodes?
They don't act as nodes. That's why they are called hashers.
Okay, so they participate in mining, but they don't maintain a copy of
the blockchain.
Yeah, they don't maintain a copy of the blockchain.
They don't also decide which transaction to be included. They are basically the slaves of Foundry and Pool, F2 Pool, etc.
Okay, so these public pools, right? Like people pool in their hash power, and then whatever is mined using that is distributed based on how much hash power you contributed.
Yes. So these three pools, they run their own nodes. They have their own block template. Okay, and they distribute the blocks that they created using their block template to the hashes of their pool, and those hashes works on those blocks, and they will send them back to Foundry, and the Foundry will decide the winner block, and then the Foundry will relay that successful block to the network, and the same is done by Antpool and F2 pool, etc. And all of them uses Stratum V1 protocol, mining protocol, to do that. Mining pool protocol. Okay.
All
right. So this diagram is very important, and I believe most of the people don't explain this. Even the people who are pro North side, like who are against spam, let's say like Jimmy Song on, like so much, like only Luke has insisted, Luke and mechanic, those kind of people have insisted on these ideas precisely when discussing these concepts.
Okay. And why is
Okay,
this important to understand?
why this is important to understand? Like what percentage of hash power is working on the transaction you created?
Interesting.
Okay, the transaction you created doesn't have to be worked on all the miners, worked on by all the miners. It is uh, like, I mean, if all the nodes relay your transaction, then it is likely that your transaction, if it pays sufficient fee, will be worked by all the miners.
So the way I understand it, and tell me if I'm wrong, is once you broadcast a transaction,
Mhm.
let's say you use a particular node, because let's say you're using a wallet and that wallet is connected to some node, but
Mhm.
because of the gossip protocol, all nodes will find out about your transaction will get added to the mempool, but it might be in waiting, it might not be in the next expected block.
Yeah,
But the
exactly.
moment it is in the next expected block, my understanding is that most miners follow the
Mhm.
mempool. So most miners will take your transaction from the next expected mempool block and then be
Mhm.
working on it. So most of the hash power will be working on the transaction you created the moment it is added to the next expected block in the mempool. Now, am I right or am I wrong?
Correct. Correct. This understanding is crucial.
Okay. So why
Okay,
is your question relevant then?
it is kind of like relevant. For example, mempool. I will explain mempool one more time. Sorry, now only I'm kind of like explaining mempool. Okay, so there is a block size limit. Okay, the number of transactions that are created right now, let's say this is the latest block which is created right now. Okay, so it is created right now, and there are like 10,000 transactions were created in the next 2 minutes. Okay, in the next 2 minutes 10,000 transactions were created, and the next expected block will be in, let's say, 12 minutes, for example. Okay, based on the difficult adjustment, it's not required that every block will be exactly 10 minutes. All right, so maximum, like let's say 3,000 4,000 transactions can be included in a block. So the rest of the transactions need to be in a waiting area. That waiting area is called mempool. So mempool is essentially a waiting area maintained by each node.
Oh, each node, even just the listening nodes that are not actually doing any relaying.
No, no, no. Let's say the relaying nodes.
Relaying nodes, okay.
Okay, because a node which only simply accepts the next block, it is enough to maintain the UTXO set. They don't technically need to have the mempool, but yeah, that's
Okay.
about it.
Okay. So I'm
Okay.
guessing there must also be some protocol that everyone is using to maintain the mempool. So everyone has the same copy of the mempool.
Everyone doesn't need to have the same copy of the mempool.
That makes sense because you can choose to work on different transactions. Let's say there are two different mempools. So one set of miners are working on one mempool, the other set are working on the other mempool, and whoever mines the block first, that block gets added and everyone gets updated on that block.
Yeah, but even let's say, let's forget about the proof of work, forget about the mining. Let's just think about the transactions getting relayed. It is impossible for every node to have the exact copy of a mempool at any point in time because it is distributed throughout the, like, geographically. All right, and the peers are not chosen based on geographic location. So the peers are chosen, let's say, the peers are chosen in such a way that it has reliable peers. All right, for example, if you create a node in India, doesn't mean that every one of your peer will be in India.
Yeah, I will. connect
Yeah.
my node to whoever I know and I trust
No,
or I
whoever you
like.
wish, but it is the peer connection code is written in such a way that it doesn't choose us only within the specific geographic location. Because what if some disaster happened to the specific geographic location? So you will lose all your peers.
Oh, so it's not a voluntary choice. Like I don't get to choose my peers. My peers are chosen for me.
Like that's how it works in the Bitcoin core and Bitcoin nodes, right? So the peers are the peers are chosen in such a way that it see in a non-biased way. Okay, so it chooses like from all over the world,
Okay, interesting.
so that no single geographic failure can terminate all your connections.
It makes practical sense.
Yeah, but you can choose, for example, in liberal relay, I believe, because the protocol doesn't specify that you have to choose the peers in certain way. Technically you can manually choose your own peers. Technically it is possible.
Okay. But if you follow core or knots or something, so there's also recommendations for how to choose your peers.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Fair.
All right. So the mempool, all right. So because the transaction that is related to this node doesn't necessarily have to be related to this node as well.
It will eventually reach there through gossip, but it doesn't have to be relayed in the first place.
Doesn't mean that simultaneously every mempool of the every node will be this.
Fair. It will take only a few seconds, maybe, right? For any transaction that is related to, let's say, one node, for it to be gossiped throughout the entire network. How much time does it take?
Not exactly sure, because there are like mempool filters as well. But let's assume that um, none of the nodes, let's say, filters the transaction that you created. Then in few seconds or minutes, your transaction should be in all the nodes. But
Okay.
there is no need to expect that it will happen, because the network can be partitioned as well. Partition in the sense, for example, this area, for example, can never be reached by this node. Might happen. It is possible in a distributed network.
But then that would also mean that that area, the two partitioned areas, they will
Hmm.
also not be able to exchange blocks that are being mined, right?
Exactly. It blocks doesn't mind, but the idea is that this partition won't be, let's say, it won't exist forever.
No,
All
no,
right,
no.
the
So
partition.
my
Yeah,
point
then
is that this is a problem, right? But if this is
no.
true,
Mhm.
that means that if a new mine is blocked, if the new block is mined by the right partition area and they
Mhm.
are gossiping, but the gossip doesn't reach the left partition area,
It
they will
won't.
never find out about that block.
Exactly. The idea is that these partitions won't like exist throughout. For example, these nodes will again try to find out the connecting. For example, the new peers. So they each node, the left will try to find a new peer.
Okay, so the way I want to
No,
understand this is, or
no.
the way I
My,
understand
my,
it,
my
it
point is very simple. Okay, the mempool doesn't have to be the same for every node at any point in time.
especially I think if I create a node where I don't follow any protocol and I just connect it to, let's say, one of my friend's nodes, and he
Mhm.
connects it to my nodes, and we are both relying on each other, but we are not connected to the rest of the network, and that would
Yes,
mean that we will end up creating nodes that are partitioned.
exactly.
Yeah, okay, I see. But this problem is circumvented to a great extent, I believe, if you follow the
Yeah,
protocol for selecting your peers, because then you will be getting gossip from many different sources and
exactly.
geographies.
Exactly. I'm just explaining these problems to help you like register the idea that each node has its own mempool version of mempool. Only blockchain is guaranteed to be eventually consistent. Mempool is not guaranteed to be consistent. The goal of the mempool is not to be consistent.
Fair, fair. I can also understand why people would want to create different mempools because they might have different logics,
Or different preferences as well.
different preferences.
Like, why do you need to run a Bitcoin node? What incentive do you have to run a Bitcoin node? Like, if as a miner you get uh, mining profits, right? Mining rewards. What is the point of you run a Bitcoin node?
Okay, so this is again a question to me.
No. Like I'm just general. It's general. like what is the reward for you to run a Bitcoin node? Okay, so you can argue that okay, it helps improve the health of the network, right? But by using the same logic, you will you will want to maintain. So the only reason that you run a Bitcoin node is to help maintain the health of the network.
Fair.
Okay? To help maintain the health of the network. Okay, which means Bitcoin node runners, this is very important, very crucial for the pro node side. Node runners care about Bitcoin. Okay, node runners, only if you hold Bitcoin, you have incentive to run a Bitcoin node.
Yeah, because you want to ensure that the network is strong and protected and decentralized.
Yeah. And you want the value of Bitcoin to go up, because if the health of the Bitcoin node is there, you can encourage more people to use Bitcoin, and eventually you like that's why you need to run a Bitcoin node. Okay, because you care about Bitcoin, no other way.
Fair.
All right. So if you care about Bitcoin, then you care about how the Bitcoin block space is also used.
I'll let you make this argument. I might disagree with it later, but I'll let you make the argument.
Okay. Yeah, I can. Okay. So let's say why people came into Bitcoin. It is a peer-to-peer electronic cash. Okay. So if you try to like help people to get into Bitcoin network, all right, to start transacting in Bitcoin, or let's say start investing in Bitcoin or whatever, it is because Bitcoin is money. Now people started using Bitcoin as ordinals or NFTs or whatever.
What are ordinals, okay? NFTs?
NFTs is something called non-fungible tokens. Mm-hmm. I don't understand it more than that. Okay, so why does it holds value? I have no clue. All right, but people started using techniques to stuff arbitrary data into Bitcoin transaction. So the data has the value. In a regular Bitcoin transaction, okay, the amount in the output has the value. In ordinals or NFT kind of transactions, the data, the image or the video or the GIF or whatever that is stored in the transaction, that holds the value.
So it is not just transaction data, it is other kinds of data being inserted into the blockchain.
That has the value. And the Bitcoin node cannot understand that.
What do you mean by cannot understand?
Yes, if you create an ordinal type of transaction using a Bitcoin node, you won't be able to recognize that transaction is an ordinal transaction.
What is an ordinal?
Yeah, I'll come to it. Okay.
When you say a Bitcoin node will not be able to recognize, it means that it will just look at it as a regular transaction and hence approve it.
Yes, approve it. But it will have an output values like 500 sats or dust values or even below dust values sometimes. Okay. So basically the output that sats that we value as a Bitcoin, for example, if you receive a Bitcoin, let's say if you invest in Bitcoin, you infer the value from the output value of your UTXO, yes or no?
Yeah, it's the amount of sats that I'm getting.
Yes. For example, in ordinals protocol, the value is not in the output value, but rather the data which is stuffed in the witness in the transaction, let's say.
Let's say there is an image of a monkey.
Exactly. So the value is inside the data that is stuffed in the transaction. Okay. So now Bitcoin, let's say Bitcoin is, let's say, or significantly has been used to sell kind of NFTs like this or images like this
Okay.
as a place. Okay. Now, as a Bitcoin node runner, should you care about it or should you not care about it? That's the question.
You should care. I mean, if you run a node not because of any direct financial benefit, but an indirect benefit that you are strengthening the Bitcoin network and hence Bitcoin's price can appreciate, Bitcoin can live for
Exactly.
longer. So you care about
Exactly.
Bitcoin, so you care about what's happening with Bitcoin.
Exactly. If NFTs, if people started to think that Bitcoin is just another NFT, what will happen to the Bitcoin value?
So I don't necessarily understand the link between Bitcoin also being used to store, let's say, images, and the jump to people will start thinking it's just for images.
Okay, so let's think about in newbie, let's say in terms of newbies. All right. So if you are in Bitcoin, let's say for 10 years, even doesn't matter whatever the schemes that they create, let's say ordinals or now whatever ordinal, like they are like in every 2 years they will come up with something. Okay, some kind of scheme to get rich quick. As a seasoned, let's say Bitcoiner, you won't be like inclined to put stuff in it. I believe like there are let's say like 1 to 2% of Bitcoiners fell for the MSTR kind of schemes by Sailor, but majority did not care much about it. Okay, from my experience or from my point of view. All right. Similarly, majority did not care about the ordinal stuff also. All right, who are the seasoned Bitcoiners, but the new Bitcoiners, the newcomers, they want to get rich quick. Okay, so they will get distracted by those schemes, and they definitely did get distracted by those schemes in 2023 and 2024 and so on. So the newcomers, they are getting distracted rather than learning about Bitcoin, of why Bitcoin and what Bitcoin, what purpose does it serve, what are the challenges that it solves. Okay, and why it is important for freedom and sovereignty for an individual and for even a nation or a community. Okay, rather than things like this, people start, because those marketing companies, right? So the ordinals, it as a company, so they will sell with the Bitcoin name. Okay, in every single marketing campaign used by them, they will use the name of the Bitcoin. Okay, so using Bitcoin, you can have very reliable NFT that lives forever.
Okay.
All right, so they can't, for example, they can't do that kind of marketing with the Solana network, because no one will believe the Solana network will run forever.
Okay. I
Okay,
don't
so
see the
they use,
problem with that yet, by the way.
yeah, whatever. Okay, so they will be using kind of these things, and people get distracted. All right, so the newcomers into the investors, they also get distracted, and the developers, they also get distracted.
All of this sounds very paternalistic to me.
No, it doesn't. I mean, it can sound paternalistic to you, but the amount of RAM which is required to run a Bitcoin node, I would suggest you strongly to start running a Bitcoin node and observe the logs till 2023. Okay, so if you start a Bitcoin node, okay, and you observe the logs, right, and what are the blocks that it is getting processed, because if you start a Bitcoin node, it will start processing blocks from Genesis block. Okay, and it will continuously like start processing the blocks up until 2023. The speed will be very much very faster. Okay, but you will observe that the percentage of the blocks processed is only 50% or 60%, and from 2023 to 2026 it will take so much time to start a new node itself. It is not a paternalistic thing concern, it is an actual infrastructure concern because of this dust value UTXOs.
Okay, and if it is getting more difficult or expensive to run a node, it would mean that fewer people will run a node, which will reduce the decentralization and the robustness of the system.
Yeah, robustness of the system. Okay, it reduces decentralization, robustness of the system, and Bitcoin has been significantly started to be used for a different purpose than that is used for money. Even if you care or not, Bitcoin is being used for ordinals.
What are ordinals?
That's NFTs, some stupid NFT. That's it.
Okay, JPEGs.
That's some stupid NFTs which uses Bitcoin protocol. That's it. Okay, and during the hype of the ordinals in 2023 or 2024, during that time, it was even difficult to start. It was even practically impossible to start a Lightning node or a Lightning channel.
Why?
Because the fees are so high.
So it's not practically impossible. It's just more expensive, right?
Yeah, that's it. If it is more expensive, it is very impossible. It is impossible for newcomers to come in. For example, in economically like difficult places like let's say Africa or even India or Southeast Asia,
it just becomes infeasible.
Kind of to that place during that period of time, and you lose a significant Bitcoin adoption also.
I see the argument you're making.
Yeah, because let's say you can argue that okay, only those people doesn't understand Bitcoin well, but they actually face critical issues trying to get into Bitcoin, trying to use Bitcoin as a money.
And this is the spam that you were referring to.
Exactly.
Okay.
So it makes it difficult if, let's say, now the ordinals craze is not there. Okay. Now in future, if the ordinals craze once again starts, we can say, oh, it will be there only for 1 year. What if 1 year if poor people can't run Bitcoin, nothing will happen. You can just ignore it. And that kind of a lethargic attitude decreases the adoption of Bitcoin very significantly. At least it breaks. Let's say the Bitcoin adoption is moving at, let's say, 50 km/h. All right, and that 1 year gap reduces the speed of Bitcoin adoption to 10 km/h. And why do we need to accept it as okay?
You're making a very good case, Delcin.
Yeah, that's what actually happened. I mean, you talked about the paternalistic concern because you were thinking from an investor point of view.
No,
okay?
I was thinking from a freedom point of view.
Yeah. Kind of like, why do we need to help, like save the newbies? Okay, so my point is not about saving the newbies. Okay, people will do stupid stuff all the time. My point is about like the let's say that blockades against the Bitcoin adoption. Okay, even the people who actually wants to use Bitcoin as money, even the people who are not very greedy or who doesn't want to get rich soon, even they face difficulties getting into Bitcoin because of these kind of things. For example, let's say you're trying to help a Bitcoin a newcomer who genuinely, I mean, cares about, let's say, freedom, who wants a sovereign money and whatever, but who doesn't know anything about Bitcoin. Okay, you help them run a node. All right, so how do you explain the period of time from 2023 to 2026?
They will run a node. So
yeah,
what I take away from what you're saying, I'll just quickly summarize and tell me if I'm wrong, is the real challenge that I can relate to is that if you have a lot of spam on the blockchain, like on the network, it would price out transactions that are monetary in nature.
Yes.
Right? And
yes.
The primary purpose of Bitcoin is to be money. But if other kind of things are interfering in its ability to be money, that's not a good thing.
Yes. And very high fee is also not a good property of a money.
Okay. So that's where I was going to present a counter argument, right? So my counter argument would be that fees have been very low for quite some time now, especially as increasingly the new investors that are coming in, they are not buying on-chain Bitcoin. They are buying ETFs. They are buying stocks of treasury companies. So they don't occupy as much space on the blockchain because their purchases are aggregated, and then a company like BlackRock or MicroStrategy goes and makes one single transaction to represent maybe hundreds, thousands of investors, right? So block space use has declined the fee for block space has been sitting at 1 sat per virtual byte for a long time now, because the block space is basically not being used. And the security model of Bitcoin, because the block reward is halving, and we are already now at 3.125 Bitcoins per block, and this will keep halving every 4 years roughly. So, as the block reward halvens, the security model of Bitcoin relies more and more on the fees being generated. Fees
Okay.
become a significant proportion of the total reward that a miner gets. So, while it is pricing out or making certain kinds of transactions expensive, it is also ensuring that miners get a decent reward. They are able to make decent money, which is increasing the security model, increasing the security of the Bitcoin network.
Like fees are exist to increase the security of the Bitcoin network. No doubt. No, I don't disagree with it. Also, I don't agree with anything with ETFs or MST or anything. But high fee is not a good property of a money. That doesn't change it. Okay, even if Bitcoin, like if the fees are so high, you won't even able to use it as a money. The Bitcoin UTXO that you hold. So that's why we need L2 and L3 protocols, layer 2 protocols like Lightning or even Arc right now. We need it. Without it, Bitcoin cannot function as a money.
I agree with you that we need layer 2, layer 3 protocols so that smaller transactions can be made quickly and cheaply. But I don't agree that there is a should be when it comes to the base layer. I think the fees on the base layer is a free market determination of what is the current supply demand dynamic.
Yeah, the base layer, like as you said, it represents the market dynamics. Okay, and right now the dynamics has been compromised by those ETFs and all those stuff. So the fees are the expected fee should be high, but it is not high because of people are not making enough on-chain transactions. I agree with that, but there is no need to, let's say, artificially, like, the thing is, okay, this problem you need to understand, like the mining needs to get cheaper. Okay, that's kind of the model.
What do you mean by that?
The electricity, everything gets cheaper with
if
Bitcoin.
It gets cheaper, people will pile on more, and the difficulty adjustment will ensure that it gets more difficult and again expensive. So the price of Bitcoin is the determining sort of the income of a miner is the block reward plus whatever transaction fees that they get into the price of Bitcoin, right?
Exactly, into the price of Bitcoin. So since the price of Bitcoin is expected to grow large, okay, the corresponding proportion in sats, it doesn't necessarily need to balloon so much. That's my point.
Yeah, that's fine. The point I'm trying to make is that if computation gets more efficient, if we build even better ASICs, if electricity gets cheaper, it doesn't matter, because in the end, a miner has a certain expected earning based on block reward, based on what is their proportion of the total compute being put in, and the price of Bitcoin and all of those things. So they have an expected revenue, and based on that, there is a certain line up to which they are willing to put in money, whether it is compute, whether it is energy, whether it is the equipment, whatever. So if electricity gets cheaper and compute gets cheaper, it just means that miners will put more and more of it. If the price of Bitcoin goes up, it means that miners will put more and more of it.
Exactly, but I am measuring everything against Bitcoin. So when I say it gets cheaper, it means I'm saying that the block reward doesn't necessarily need to grow so much in BTC terms, SATS terms. So we are essentially making the same argument. That's what I'm saying.
So I don't understand your argument then.
No. What I'm saying is that the fees in number of sats doesn't necessarily require to increase so much. I'm talking about the number of sats.
Okay, and the assumption here is that the conversion of sats to dollars or rupees or whatever is going to keep going up.
Exactly.
Okay, so what is the consequence of that?
The consequences of that is, like, you don't need to artificially you don't need to allow people or the attackers to artificially increase the fees. Let's like have a consensus on this. So people who pump out a lot of spams into the blockchain, I consider them as attackers.
Okay.
Attackers.
Let's call them
Okay.
spammers. Let's use a neutral term.
No. The spammers, that is your point of view. The thing is, it reduces the health of the Bitcoin network. So I consider them as attackers.
Okay, we'll go with your term for now.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. Like, I'm like, so I consider them as attackers, and Adam Adam Back consider them as what users. What do you call them? A minority of some kind of users. Okay, so minority, tolerant minority. That's what Adam Back calls them, tolerant minority.
What does it mean? Who is the tolerant minority?
They are tolerant minority because they tolerate the ordinals, the NFTs, and the rest of
Who is they?
the people who create those NFTs and everything, and who runs the liberal array. Liberal array accepts every transactions, every consensus valid transaction.
Okay, so you're saying that the mempool currently does not accept spam?
The mempool, if you're talking about mempool, you're talking about a single node, not the network.
There is
Okay.
no single mempool, you're right.
Exactly.
But
So
when I go to mempool.space, does it represent like a famous mempool at least?
It represents a Bitcoin node which it derives the data from. It represents a single node only.
But are there mempools, or is there one particular mempool that many nodes or most nodes rely on?
I believe mempool.space uses Bitcoin Core. Mempool.guide uses Bitcoin nodes.
Okay. So mempool.space and mempool.guide are the two popular mempools.
Yeah, that I'm aware of. There are many other available as well. You can create your own mempool.space.
Okay. And neither of these two mempools accept spam?
No, the spam, see, when you talk about spam, okay, the attacker can find new ways to stuff spam.
Okay.
Okay. So even if you run a Bitcoin nodes node, they can come up with a new way to stuff spam that will be affected, that will be relayed by the Bitcoin nodes node.
But what about it currently? Is currently a Bitcoin nodes node also allowing some spam at least to come through?
I can assume that the majority no. Okay. Because spamming also has cost. All right. Maybe one or two transaction you can twist, but if you want to carry out like the damage that is done by ordinals to the Bitcoin network, you need a kind of a specific kind of a protocol. Okay. And the Bitcoin nodes developer can use the same protocol to create a mempool filter that will filter out those spam. So their mempool can be free of those spam.
What happens when there's a transaction that is relayed and Bitcoin Core allows the transaction to go through, but Bitcoin nodes does not allow the transaction to go through? What happens then?
It comes to this point. What percentage of the hash power is working on the transaction you created?
Okay, so it's only a mempool filter. Eventually, if the transaction gets added to a block, even the Bitcoin nodes folks who are against spam, even they will accept that block.
Yes. And the point of the mempool filter is rate limiting. Okay. So this is another important point. You don't beat a filter by, let's say, so point of mempool filters is rate limiting. All right. Which means it is to reduce the number of spams that will get added into Bitcoin blockchain. It is not about avoiding all spam. So if fewer percentages of the hash power are working on the spam transactions, then only the rate at which those transactions get confirmed, we can expect that to decrease.
Fair. Now I have a question here.
Yeah.
If I am a miner, unless I have a very strong ideological stance on this, and I'm like, okay, no, spam is bad for the network, and I will not mine transactions that contain spam, and hence I will follow the knots mempool, which was mempool dot, what did you say?
Mempool.guide.
Mempool.guide. So an ideological miner might follow mempool.guide, and hence that miner's hash power is not going to be working on spam transactions. But any normal miner who is driven by incentives, that miner will accept mempool.space, that is letting in spam transactions to be added to the mempool as well, because that miner will just care about fees, and if a spammer is willing to pay them fees, they'll accept it. So naturally the hash power going into spam transactions, even with the rate limit, should be still significant.
Yes.
Is that's what's happening right now?
I mean, it's like kind of, see, the thing is, okay, so that is why we are saying we have to fight spam at mempool level. Knots folks, especially Luke, make the point very clear, okay, because you only if you relay the transaction to the miner will be able to mine it. If you don't relay those spam transactions, okay, the chances of that transaction getting to the miner is small.
Then if you don't relay the spam transactions, then only if someone sends the transaction directly to a miner that they have a relationship with, then they can get it added to the blockchain.
Exactly.
Okay.
And that's how Slipstream works. Slipstream from Mara, that's how it's worked.
What is Slipstream? Acha, the direct sending a transaction to a miner.
Direct submission. I think even that is not in function. That is not functioning right now. And this is not actually. This is also not actually a very reliable way. There are so much difficulties associated with this kind of thing as well. Okay, so much technical kind of difficulties.
Okay, but so
okay, we will slowly. I mean, like we can do this kind of thing like many times if you are up, if you are willing. Okay, in a single sitting, I think it will be very difficult to cover.
Yeah, so
many
we'll
concepts.
set Slipstream aside for now. I have a question regarding. Let me just frame this. So the core versus knots, the whole debate, let's say, that's happening. Core folks are saying that we should let whatever the protocol allows on a consensus level into the blockchain. The knots folks are saying that we should not allow spam and dust and other sorts of like nonsense space use into the blockchain. And the way they are conducting their fight right now is on the level of the mempool filter. Okay. Yeah. What is changing in August?
And this was the stance of no. This was the stance of core in during 2018 time as well. Okay, the stance of the knots was a stance of the core in during 2018 time till 2018.
What changed?
That also I will make it sure. Okay, during that time, if you go and look at the PR, only Peter Todd. Okay, no, Peter Todd hasn't changed. So Peter Todd was consistent that if a transaction is consensus valid, it should be allowed to be in the mempool. Okay, so his stance was there from 2014 itself, I guess. Okay, but the core was not kind of like fully in line with it. But since 2020, slowly, core has been okay with the idea of Peter Todd. All right.
Okay.
Okay. So this is kind of like the big spam problem. I believe there will be so much questions about it. Everyone, to you and everyone listening to you as well. I mean, of course, if you are a technical person, then this kind of explanation is not for you. But anyway, okay. So the idea of mempool filter is only the rate limiting. And now what is going to change in August? Let's go to it. It's called BIP-110. And it has everything to do with the idea of arbitrary data. Okay. Does Bitcoin supports arbitrary data storage? This is the question. This is the question that BIP-110 deals with. BIP-110 does not deal with spam.
Okay. What is arbitrary data?
Okay, arbitrary data means something like an S3 or a cloud storage. Okay, so if you have some access to some kind of a cloud storage provider, you can put any data in that cloud storage as you wish, and it is stored in the computers associated with that service provider. Yes or no? Yes, right?
I'm not an expert in this, but it sounds obvious. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, think of like a Google Drive. I believe you are using Google Drive, right?
Yes,
Google
yes, I
Drive. You don't
am.
use Google Drive. Yeah, Google Drive, Apple Cloud, something like that.
I use
Okay.
Google Drive, yeah.
Yeah. So should Bitcoin provide that kind of a facility? Yes or no?
Okay, so that's the question, that if you let spam in, then it just becomes something like a Google Drive or an Apple Cloud where anyone can store whatever they want.
No. That's not associated with spam at all. This BIP-110 was proposed due to what we call an op return change. Sorry, an op return.
And just to clarify, BIP is Bitcoin Improvement Proposal.
Yeah, it's called Bitcoin Improvement Proposal, and the numbers are assigned in based on like I mean initially the number proposed was BIP-100, BIP-444 was the initial number proposed by Luke. I mean the proposal. Sorry, that improvement proposal was submitted by Delcin Nadar. Okay, so that's the pseudonym. All right, but the number BIP-104 was suggested by Luke, and this number was decided by the Bitcoin core developer, I believe Jonathan, but I'm not sure. Okay, not sure. Okay, but anyway, these are like decided based on arbitrary. It has nothing. I mean, yeah, it doesn't mean anything. It's just only used for identification. So this thing called op return change. Okay, so what is op return? An op return is a field in Bitcoin, like it's a type of Bitcoin output. It's a type of unspendable Bitcoin output, which can be used to store arbitrary data for bookkeeping preferences, for bookkeeping for bookkeeping purposes. Okay, so
it sounds like spam to me.
No, it is not actually spam. Okay, so it is an output. Okay, it serves some crucial purposes for layer 2 kind of protocols, or even some privacy protocols like Whirlpool. Okay, so according to so initially, why do they created this op return field? So op return field was created in 2013 or 14, I guess, and I believe Luke was one of the people in the proposal. All right. So the size of the field at the consensus level is only limited by the size of the transaction or the size of the block. Okay. So a transaction can technically be as big as a block, right?
Fair.
With respect to the consensus rules. With respect to the consensus rule. Of course, in mempool rules, there are like many other restrictions on the size of the transaction and the size of the output size or whatever in the Bitcoin core nodes as well. Okay. All right, so it was introduced so that the people who are working who are developing applications on top of Bitcoin can use this field to store some relevant information, okay, which can be used for their protocol or their programming purposes. All right.
Okay.
So since a transaction is only limited by the size of the blockchain, sorry, the size of the block, and the size of this operand field was only restricted to mempool filters. All right. So the initial mempool filter for the size of operand is 43 bytes. Later, it was increased to 83 bytes for Whirlpool kind of transactions, like Whirlpool transactions by Samurai wallet developers, I guess. Not exact, not very sure, but it is like Whirlpool kind of Whirlpool transactions. Okay, so it was introduced. It was increased to 83 bytes. Luke did not increase the. I mean, these kind of mempool filters are default filters. So most of the nodes that you run, that people run, they will start with the default filters. They won't specifically change the filter. So if you start to run a node, you can change every single filter as you wish. You can change the operand size to 0 bytes as well. So your node will not relay any transaction that contains the operand field. Okay, so if you change it to 1000 bytes, it will allow the transactions to contain the operand field up to 1000 bytes. Okay, something like that. All right, get it? So these are the 43 bytes and the 83 bytes are the defaults.
Quick question.
For a Bitcoin, for a default value for input filters. Yeah.
So can you just scroll up a little bit?
Mm-hmm.
What makes this transaction unspendable?
That is the convention used in the Bitcoin source code. Okay, it has been written that way. The code has been written that way.
Does it contain any sats or is it empty in the amount section?
You can choose to put some sats and lose the money. That's your wish.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. People have done that on purpose, I believe.
Okay. So
okay,
op return is a certain transaction type which is unspendable, but instead of that, you can use it to store some kind of data.
Yes.
Okay, I don't see the difference between this and spam yet, except for the fact that this is a particular output type, like it's a dedicated output type.
A dedicated output type.
Okay.
So, I mean, you cannot reliably store a JPEG in 80 bytes. That's the difference.
Okay. 83 virtual bytes.
Okay. 80 bytes, I guess. Bytes are virtual bytes.
Yeah. Okay.
Not exactly sure. Okay. I don't remember it on top of the mind. So I mean, you can just Google it. Like I'm explaining the concepts that I'm explaining. That's like precise.
That's fine. That's fine.
Okay. Yeah. So these are the default mempool filters, and majority of the nodes run with default mempool filters. They don't usually go and change. Okay, they will change only for when it is like makes sense to them. For example, a corporate or some company or Bitcoin company, they're running their own. They might need some additional operand sizes, so they might run. But a regular Bitcoin node user won't be worried about the other people's transactions.
Okay.
Okay, so they will carry out with their default mempool filters. So the majority of the Bitcoin transactions, they're with the operand field, they were within the limits only.
Okay.
Okay, there were very few transactions that operand transactions that violates this limit.
Okay.
Okay, and it changed only when these centralized mining pool companies, okay, these centralized mining pool companies, right? Let's mark them in red. Only when these centralized mining pool companies started using liberal array. Okay, since every transaction will be accepted in liberal array, so then basically these kind of weird data transactions are created by some kind of a developers working for some VC based company. Okay, even the ordinals and those kind of stuff, because those are essentially funded by like those kind of startups.
Okay.
Okay, based on some VC money. And yeah, so either related with some exchange or whatever, because ordinals has been the ordinals, the people who buy ordinals, you don't use a Bitcoin note to buy. Okay, so you go to those kind of the exchanges and you buy them, you can exchange with them or whatever. So a separate software will be running, a separate website will be running to track the ordinals transactions, okay, and to exchange the ordinals transactions, all those stuff. So not just with ordinals, there are like concepts like runes and so much stuff, which it is very hard even for any technical most technical persons to keep up. Okay, those are like what called internet degens or some kind of word. Degens is a term, so only those kind of people are very interested in it or whatever. Okay, so majority of the transactions are that uses operator bytes or within this limit. Okay, and in 2024, I believe 2024 or 2025, I guess 2025. 2025, Bitcoin Core developers, because of a requirement with Citria. Okay, Citria is they working on some protocol called BitVM. So BitVM is the protocol, some kind of a layer 2 protocol by the company Citria, and I think Jameson Lopp is a founder or a co-founder of Citria. Okay, so these are the companies. So they want the size of the operand bytes to be increased from 83, the default bytes to be increased from 83 to 146 or something like that.
Okay. Why?
Because their protocol requires that some space, that
Okay.
much space.
Okay.
And they want to be able to mine those transactions readily. So since mempool filters are there, they won't be able to mine those transactions readily. So they need the default mempool values to be updated from 83 to 146.
And are they also like their transactions are going to add like JPEGs or something to the blockchain? Like, what is wrong with their transactions?
Nothing is wrong with their transactions. Let's say some criticism from people like even Luke and Super Testnet, which I believe. So these are the people. So Super Testnet is another pseudonym for a developer. So for them, they said that you should be able to do that within 83 byte limits, because that is related with some cryptographic computations. Okay, you don't require like 146 bytes to actually do it or something like that. Okay, but the argument, the requirement was given by this company for their protocol. Okay, for their kind of a layer 2 protocol, and to developers like Antoine Ponsard. Okay, so they said that, okay, why do we need to increase the default values for every single requirement? We will get rid of those limit altogether, and we will remove any mempool filter on operand data.
Okay.
That is their conclusion.
Okay.
Okay, so why do we need to make this change for every new companies? Let's get rid of it completely. So now if there is no mempool filter for operand data, you will be able to store 1 MB files in a Bitcoin transaction in a dedicated field for arbitrary data.
Because 1 MB is the size of a block?
Yes.
Okay.
And operand is the operand weight will not have any discount due to SegWit. Okay, so with respect to SegWit, the ordinals, in ordinals, a single transaction could be as big as 3.6 MB or something, because 4 MB is maximum size of a SegWit block, because you can stuff data in the witness field. So witness field is the input field where the discount applies.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. There's a 25% weight that is taken, right? So it's like 1/4 the actual size.
Size was taken. So Operator, the weight will be computed in terms of legacy weight terms, so no discount for operator. So you will be able to say store 1 MB data reliably in a field dedicated to arbitrary data in the Bitcoin blockchain.
Okay.
So this means if there is no mempool filter or default mempool filter to operator, or the operator filters will be removed. So I believe in one of their updates, they say they will completely remove the ability to configure the operator mempool filter altogether. You won't even be able to configure the filter.
Who is you?
A node runner.
Okay, so normally if you're running Bitcoin Core, you have some things that you can configure still based on your
Still,
personal preferences.
personal preferences. So they are going to get rid of operator limit, mempool limit altogether.
Why?
I don't know.
That's a very strong stance to take, right? Like to even take away the optionality from people.
Yeah, they did it and then they went back on it.
Okay. Because of pushback?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. So to remove the mempool filter altogether, then one can say that Bitcoin supports arbitrary data. If there is no limit for the field dedicated for arbitrary data. Operator is a field dedicated for arbitrary data. Okay, so ordinals, NFTs, so they are stored in witness field. They are not stored in arbitrary field. A Bitcoin, remember the point I said, a Bitcoin node won't be able to recognize the data that is stored by the ordinals transactions, right? Because that is stored in the witness field. Witness field is the witness is a place where you store data that is required to spend the transaction input.
Okay, so how
Okay,
can you
kind of a
store
signature, kind of a,
JPEGs in the witness field?
yeah, that is using some kind of a trick, script
Okay.
trick. With that requires a own technical video on itself. Okay,
Some trick.
yeah, it's some kind of a signature, because witness is a place where you store the signature. It's a key to the transaction input. Basically it's a key. You need to provide the key, the signature, right, to spend the transaction input.
Fair. So what is the difference then if I store a JPEG in the witness field or if I store it in this arbitrary data field? What is the difference?
The difference is that the node runner, if you run a node, if you run an updated Bitcoin Core node where there is no limit for the operator, then it means you you support the propagation of arbitrary data in Bitcoin.
Yeah, but that was
Okay.
true even before. Like before, if they can
No,
store it in witness and you
no,
allow
no,
that, even then you're supporting the storage of arbitrary data.
no. You are only supporting the witness. That is a witness. That is, let's say, the ordinals guys interpret that data as an image. Your Bitcoin node doesn't treat that data as an arbitrary file. It treats that data as a witness, as a signature.
Why is this label important to you, whether
It is very,
the node is treating it as a witness data or arbitrary file?
no, it is very important.
Why?
Why? Because any data can be. This is okay. So how do I explain it? Because you can essentially see, using some encoding tricks, you can essentially store arbitrary data in any protocol, in any distributed system.
Okay.
Okay. For example, using some tricks, you can encode some, let's say, some very weird image in your Twitter tweet itself. So does that mean that the Twitter company should be sued because of that?
Okay, make your point.
Yeah, that's exactly the point. But that, let's say the Twitter supports that let's say not just Twitter, let's say Facebook or any kind of social media. This problem, let's say it allows you to upload photos and videos as well. So what does that mean? You can post any photos and any videos there. It actually evaluates your photo, right, whether it violates anything. Even let's say if you upload some video to YouTube.
Yeah, fair. There's evaluation happening.
Yeah,
So
but technically you can add some kind of an encoding into that YouTube video also, to have some malicious information passed on,
yeah,
that the YouTube won't be able to filter, won't necessarily be able to like recognize it.
yeah. Let's say I'm tweeting something and I can tweet the link to uh, some malicious content that is,
Yes.
let's say, passed through SHA-256, so it is hashed.
Yes, exactly. Whatever. Not exactly hash, but yeah, not necessarily hash, but you will be able to like put malicious content. So
Yeah.
no internet company can work if we take a stance like that.
If we take a stance like what?
That the witness field in the Bitcoin transaction also supports arbitrary data. The witness field in the Bitcoin transaction doesn't support arbitrary data. Even with an ordinal stick, it doesn't support arbitrary data. It's a witness field.
But there are people who can put.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. There are people who can put any kind of data, and only those people can infer the data. The rest of the people can't infer the data. Even with the tweet, let's say you have a group of people, so you have some of, let's say you come up with your own new language using English alphabets. Okay, let's say I'm pretty sure that Twitter allows. If you put some message in, let's say the legal actions can be taken against some offensive tweets even in India, right? Yes or no?
Yeah.
But let's say if you have your own community and you come up with a way of with your own language, you can put that offensive data and only you can understand it. Necessarily, let's say that those kind of tweets cannot be legally, like the legal authority of India cannot legally take actions against those kind of things, those kind of stuff, because they can't understand it.
Okay.
Or they cannot like sufficiently change it. Only you guys know it. So that's exactly how it works. Only the ordinance people, they will infer those witnesses data. The rest of the network cannot infer those witness data as.
Why cannot they infer the witness data?
Because they don't treat it as that. The Bitcoin node doesn't treat it as a data.
The code doesn't treat it.
Yeah, Bitcoin Core or Bitcoin nodes, none of the Bitcoin
nodes. No, not core, the code.
Yeah, the code doesn't treat it as a data.
But if you put it in arbitrary field, it will read it as data.
That field is created for arbitrary data.
See, again, so Delcin, the point I'm trying to make here is whether you create a field for arbitrary data or whether there is an existing field that using a trick can be used to insert arbitrary data, the consequence or the outcome is still quite similar. The fact remains that there is arbitrary data in the blockchain, whether it is in the witness field or whether it goes into the arbitrary data field. The consequence of it is not very different.
No. But from the legal framework, it is different.
How is it different?
Because you can stuff arbitrary data in any protocol. So if let's say if the legal authority takes actions against those kind of obfuscated transactions as well, let's say obfuscated data as well, then no internet company can run. Not just Bitcoin, no internet company can run. Then you will always be able to put arbitrary data using some tricks.
But again, Delcin, I think you're missing my point. If I want to put, let's say we are talking about child pornography here, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's illegal everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
If I want to put some image that depicts child pornography, I can put it in the witness field as well, and I can still create legal problems for Bitcoin. So the solution, my argument here is the solution is not just to rally against the arbitrary data field. If you want to do this, if you think this is a problem and you take it seriously, you should completely ban any kind of JPEG, any kind of arbitrary data, whether it is in the witness field, whether it is in the arbitrary data field. You should only purely allow monetary transactions.
That is not possible. See, I will explain about BIP-110. Okay, so BIP-110 makes ordinal transactions consensus invalid as well.
Okay.
So it closes all the known loopholes to stuff arbitrary data, not just operator. BIP-110 closes all the known loopholes for arbitrary data.
Okay, that's what I'm proposing as well.
No, it holds all the known holes. But my point is, even if BIP-110 is successful, people will be able to come up with new schemes to stuff arbitrary data.
It's a whack-a-mole.
It's not a whack-a-mole. This problem always exists in any distributed network. Okay, and the only way to solve this problem is let's say spam problem is, let's say, I mean, so spam problem can only be solved with mempool filters, but this arbitrary data problem has to be at a consensus level right now.
But
Even
whatever you're
before,
saying about people will find a way, even if all known methods or all known ways are blocked, people will find some new way. That's also true for mempool filters. People will find some new way
yes,
to bypass the mempool filter.
yes, and it is easy to fix at the mempool layer
Okay, so
because you
it's
don't need
only
a
a
consensus
difference of
layer.
ease.
Exactly.
And BIP-110, is it a mempool filter or is it a consensus level change? What is it?
It is a consensus level change.
And it is the first consensus. So, okay, I'll reframe the question. So far, core versus knots have been operating on the mempool filter level. But if
Yes,
BIP-110 gets implemented even by a small minority or whatever of all Bitcoin nodes, this will represent actually a consensus level fork.
it is a consensus level fork.
And so far, it has not been implemented.
What do you mean not being implemented?
If it has been implemented already, then there would already be a fork, right?
No. The fork only activates at during a certain time at August.
Yeah, so far it has not been activated.
No, that's how fork works. The fork, it has some window of time to like to form consensus.
Yeah. So far it has not yet been activated. In August,
Yes.
it gets activated.
Yes.
Okay. So now Bitcoiners, Bitcoin node runners, Bitcoin miners, they face a choice
Yes.
to go with Bitcoin core and to accept spam and arbitrary data, or to go with BIP-110, so Bitcoin knots, and to not accept it.
No. The spam, when you talk about BIP-110, we need to keep the spam away. Idea of spam away.
But you did say that BIP-110 is also going to prevent spam from the
No.
witness field,
It closes all doors for known arbitrary data exploits.
which includes spam.
No, that witness taproot trick was used to stuff arbitrary data.
Okay, so
Okay. No. See, think of it that operator is a field dedicated for arbitrary data.
yes.
Okay, and maximum 1 MB data can be stored there in consensus level. Okay,
Can I
so
put
taproot
spam in arbitrary data field?
you can
Okay. So your
you can
definition of spam is what?
definition of spam. No, spam is spam. Okay, spam is something which is not monetary transaction. I mean, it's not a monetary transaction. Okay, it is used to, let's say, arbitrarily increase the fee of the network, or it can be used to increase the size of the UTXO set. It is a coordinated attack against the Bitcoin network to lower the health of the Bitcoin network, let's say. It's a
So
coordinated
anything
against
that goes into the arbitrary data field, is all of it spam, or is some of it maybe not spam?
some of the, see, Orbit has some very valid purposes. One more thing about Orbiton is that if you create an Orbiton output, I should have mentioned this earlier. If you create an Orbiton output, that output is not stored in the UTXO set because it is unspendable. That is not stored in the UTXO set. It is only stored in the blockchain.
Okay.
Okay, because it is a field dedicated for data storage.
What kind of data is there
Any data
justification to store? What do you think is justified?
for layer 2 protocols. I just explained this about Whirlpool and all those stuff, right? Did I? Whirlpool transactions, some 83 to 180 bytes. Whirlpool's transactions, so 43 bytes initially. So initially 2014, Counterparty was doing something, some stuff. Company called Counterparty, and they were doing some tricks with pay to script hash or whatever to stuff arbitrary data. So they came up with a dedicated field for arbitrary data where they can store the hash of the data for their protocol purposes. That's why 43 bytes. So hash will be 32 bytes and some extra metadata and 11 bytes or something like that. Okay. So mostly for some layer 2 protocols, there in that use cases only we have operator, because Bitcoin alone at the on-chain cannot scale. We need layer 2 protocols for Bitcoin to truly evolve as a money.
Okay, so there is
At a
some
global level.
arbitrary data that you would say is not spam.
Yes.
Okay, let's move on. So what is BIP-110 doing?
So BIP-110, the only reason BIP-110 was proposed was that Core 30 removed any mempool filter on operator. Core version 30 removed all mempool filters on operator. That is why the idea is that Core V30 removed any filters on operator, and the initial assumption was that, okay, so since this is a controversial change and none of the most of the Bitcoiners won't run the Bitcoin Core V30 nodes, but the significant percentage of the Bitcoin nodes were Bitcoin Core V30. For example, I believe at least 10 to 12% of the Bitcoin nodes were started to run the Bitcoin Core 30. Okay, so if it reaches, if significant number of Bitcoin nodes are running Bitcoin V Core 30, then it means that the most like any arbitrary data transaction, any 1 MB arbitrary transaction will be eventually will come to the Bitcoin blockchain, because significant percentage of the hash power will work on it. Okay, so since core is a dominant, let's say, Bitcoin node maintainer, all right, because even nodes derives from Bitcoin core. Okay, so it is very easy to interpret that Bitcoin will support arbitrary data now. Before that, Bitcoin cannot be sued for arbitrary data storage.
Why not?
Now Bitcoin, because it doesn't support arbitrary data.
But you can
At the
insert
but Bitcoin,
arbitrary data in
so
the
you can
witness
insert
section.
arbitrary data into any software, any network, not just Bitcoin. You can even insert arbitrary network into any node that is running, not just a node. Yeah, let's say any system that is running in Facebook or Twitter or whatever. Even in your government official websites, you can insert arbitrary data.
But this is whataboutism. This is not going to save you in case
No,
the
no.
government of any country, let's say the US government, decides to come after Bitcoin node runners, node operators, because let's say there is child pornography in some witness section of some block of some transaction, and then the US court system, whatever, sues every single node operator in the US for hosting child pornography.
They will be, I believe the legal framework doesn't allow us to do it, from my knowledge.
The legal framework
arguments
does not
allow to sue people based on the witness data argument.
I mean, I'm sure there is no provision in the US, whatever legal document, that in the Bitcoin blockchain, in the witness data, like it's all interpretation for sure.
Yeah, exactly. The interpretation, that's what I mean. Because the argument is that it doesn't matter. Like in any network you run, you should be able to, like an attacker will be able to stuff arbitrary data. So you suing for arbitrary data is different. Now willingly running a software that supports arbitrary data, that's the risk.
I think I get what you're trying to say. So it's not a 0 or 1 thing. It's a matter of legal probability of legal consequences. So the probability increases if you allow arbitrary data, and the probability is lower if it is just by a trick being inserted into the witness section.
Exactly.
Okay.
Now, with the removal of operator filter, and if you're running Core V30 or upwards without any operator limit, okay, it means you are openly allowing the transfer of arbitrary data using the Bitcoin network.
Okay.
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 The tricks are always there. The tricks are there. Tricks will always be there.
Okay. And BIP-110 is blocking arbitrary data field entirely, or
it restricts it to 83 bytes.
Okay. And what about
at the consensus level?
At the consensus level. And what about the witness field?
The witness field also, it restricts. It has many restrictions on the witness field as well.
Okay. So in spite of these restrictions, in spite of an 83 byte restriction, someone might find a way to insert an objectionable information, data, JPEG, whatever, inside the arbitrary data field, right?
Not just arbitrary data field, even in the keys, even in the fake public keys, using fake pub keys, like in the multi-sig fake pub keys, you can always insert an arbitrary
So
data.
BIP-10 is not solving the problem; it's only reducing the
No,
size
no,
of it.
no. See, that arbitrary data problem cannot be solved.
We are fighting so much. So the whole disagreement and debate between core and knots is over something, is over a problem which A cannot be solved. So B, the two alternatives that we have, they're only different. They're lying on a spectrum and they are varying by degree.
See, the thing is, arbitrary data, okay, who can interpret, what percentage of the people can interpret the arbitrary data?
See, what you're saying is besides the point that I made. Whether it is, let's say, 1% interpretability, if it is 83 bytes or if it is 1 MB, the fact remains that both core and knots will allow some amount. Core will allow more, knots will allow less, but both are allowing.
No. See, the 80 bytes arbitrary data is not the field for JPEG, for images.
That is something that you're saying, but if I want to use it for a JPEG, I will use it for a JPEG.
I mean, what kind of a JPEG you can encode for in 80 bytes, like realistically speaking?
So I can take that larger size thing, I can put it, the JPEG sort of 0-1 binary of it through SHA-256, get out
Then
of
that's not
256. Pardon?
Then that's the thing. Then everyone else, only you will be able to say that this is the hash of an image. Everyone else will see just a string.
So
that's not an image.
So
that's
instead of using SHA-256, I can use a symmetric sort of thing where I can publish the key to it on my X profile and tell the whole world that all my JPEGs on the blockchain are, you can use this key to like de-encrypt and read the JPEG and watch the JPEG, but I'm introducing pornographic images into the blockchain now.
Exactly. Now you get sued.
You get sued, but fine, but that doesn't solve the problem on a network, on a protocol level.
No, the problem is like who the culprit is. Okay, so see, this is also a very important problem. This problem exists with slipstream as well. Okay, because a Bitcoin node provides anonymity for transaction creators.
Pseudonymity,
something like that. So kind of an anonymity, fake, like some degree of anonymity. Okay, so Bitcoin nodes provide some degree of anonymity for transaction creators. Okay, so if all the Bitcoin nodes are going to reject your transactions based on some filters, and now you are required to directly submit it to the miner, the miner will know that okay, only you submitted they will collect the data about you, and if you put some illegal data, then you will get sued.
Okay, so it's about who the responsibility falls on.
Exactly.
But even if you allow arbitrary data field, the one who is using that field for bad things is the one who is going to get sued.
Yes. Now you said, now the point you made. Okay, so another point, for example, you said that
no. Did you get what I just said?
No. Let me just finish your previous things. Okay. Then now you said that okay, those 80 byte field, you will put some whatever that image in whatever the kind of an encoding scheme, and you will publish the way to decrypt that scheme in your X post or whatever. Now you will find out. Now your X post will get terminated, and without your X post, no one will be able to interpret that 80 byte data as an image.
But my point is that even if you allow an arbitrary data field, it is the person who is using that field to publish objectionable data. That person is the one who is legally liable, not the network or the blockchain, because the network or the blockchain is not run by any particular person.
Yes, but if you remove the mempool filter, then you won't be able to figure out who actually created the transaction.
How does a mempool filter help you figure out who created a transaction?
Because if majority of the nodes run with the mempool filters, so those nodes cannot be sued. The node runners who use only lethargic, let's say, who doesn't use any mempool filters for arbitrary data, only they will get sued, even in the term kind of the legal framework that you talk about, because only those nodes without filters, they are enabling the arbitrary data problem.
Okay, I see what you mean.
Yeah. For example, if you are required to submit your objectionable thing to directly to the miners, for example, to Mara in Slipstream, they know, the Mara knows you. Okay, and the Mara's block is also published. So that is also public data, because Mara is a mining pool. Okay, so they have to put their blocks publicly. That, okay, so now the Mara is responsible. Now the person who submitted to the Mara is responsible.
Okay,
Okay,
fair.
so
I take your
without
point.
see, you can always stuff arbitrary data, but the scheme, the encoding scheme, only the person who with access to that encoding scheme can interpret that arbitrary data.
Fair. I get your point. So
Uh,
I want to move on to August. I want to know what you think is going to happen in August.
okay, so what do I think? Okay, there are two possibilities. All right, BIP-110 succeeds or fails. Okay, so if it succeeds, then, like, see, I'm pro BIP-110. Okay, so if it succeeds, it's all good. If it fails, we will try again.
What does succeed mean here?
Succeed means if it gets activated or not.
Activated by whom? The nodes, the miners?
Miners activated soft fork. So the expectation is that miners will kind of like activate it, like if I believe sufficient number of blocks. So now is a window to signal for BIP-110. Okay, so if enough blocks signals BIP-110 support, there is a block header. In the header, you can signal for the new soft fork. If enough blocks signals for BIP-110 by the August, then the miners will know that it is very risky to go against BIP-110. So they will automatically fall in line. Even the malicious one will fall in line because they need to make money.
Okay, so success would imply that the majority or the consensus of miners are using BIP-110 to filter out what transactions are acceptable, and hence these arbitrary data fields and the witness, whatever constraints that BIP-110 puts, gets enforced. But what if nodes are still accepting blocks from miners who have not chosen BIP-110? So nodes also should have to update, right?
Yes. So this is where soft fork comes in. The idea of a soft fork. Do you know what a soft fork is?
Actually, this has been a long-standing question for me. Like, what is the difference between a soft fork and a hard fork?
Okay. So, this is one node. This is another node. Okay.
Okay.
This is old version. This is new version with soft fork.
Okay.
Let's say soft fork version.
Okay.
All right. After some point, okay, after some point, soft fork version will reject. Okay, no, soft fork version. Wait. All right. So if this green node rejects blocks that, okay, green rejects blocks that would be accepted by blue.
Okay.
Okay, and more precisely, let's say let A be the blocks accepted by green, B be the blocks, some kind of a mathematical like definition terms will be much easier to make sense of it. Okay, accepted by blue. Blue is the old one, green is the updated one. Then A will be a subset of B. Be a strict subset of B.
Fair.
Okay.
Fair, because A is more picky.
More picky. Exactly. A soft fork is more picky.
Okay. What is the consequence of this?
Okay. Let's say hard fork. A hard fork is different. Okay. In a soft fork. In a soft fork. In a hard fork, A is a superset of B.
So
Okay.
all of what is being accepted by B is also being accepted by A, but also other things are being accepted by A.
Those won't be accepted by B.
Correct.
Old nodes.
Correct.
Okay. So in a soft fork, old nodes will point to the will have the copy of blockchain that is consistent with the activated soft fork.
Correct, because they won't reject anything that the forked nodes are relaying, because their acceptance set is larger.
Yeah. Okay, so if the soft fork gets activated, then the old nodes will eventually have the copy of the soft fork version. Even now, pre-SegWit nodes are running, and they essentially have the blockchain version of the post-SegWit nodes. All right, without even having the need to let's say update the node, the old nodes will point to the most reliable, the activated, the reliable blockchain. They won't be get left out.
Yeah, and this works only if the soft fork nodes are the majority. So most of the nodes have soft forked. So most of the blocks that are being relayed, that are being mined first and then relayed by these nodes, they are the soft forked blocks, so to speak. And hence, because the old ones are anyhow accepting those, that will be the one that is getting added on top. So miners have an important role to play here. The miners have to accept.
Yeah. The only if when the soft fork fails, when the soft fork succeeds, like no major problem. If the soft fork fails, there are some crucial problems.
Because there will be many transactions that will be rejected by the fork, but not rejected by the original chain. And hence, you will maybe end up with two different blockchains then. Like after the fork, there will be one chain that is longer, which will be the older chain because it's just accepting more blocks. And the other soft fork chain will be shorter and different.
Kind of like, I mean, if the miners decided to activate, then no problem. Okay, if the miners activation fails, then the BIP-110 will trigger an user activated soft fork. Okay, so this is the user saying that, okay, even if you miners reject, we don't care. We will only accept BIP-110 blocks.
And user is node?
User is node.
Okay, so this will also result in the creation of a different blockchain.
This only will result in the creation of a different blockchain. Okay, if the miners they fall in line, then nothing bad will happen.
Okay, interesting times ahead then. What is the likelihood, do you think, of BIP-110 being accepted by miners?
I see, if you would have asked me like 6 months or 1 year ago, I would have said not very likely, not likely at all. Miners would have been rejected. But since now people have started solo mining, people have started pointing to their hashes to the ocean, and people have also started to rent from brains, okay, to mine BIP-110 blocks. I believe this sends a very strong signal to the profit hungry miners, mining pools like big pools like Foundry, Ant, and so on. Okay, so now the probability of miners activating the soft fork has increased significantly. That's my biased opinion. Okay, because I never expected this to get this much adoption, honestly. Because 1 year ago, like it's like we very few people. Okay, so we were loud, vocal every single day, getting blocked by the coders, fighting everywhere. All right, and if you observe the last 3-4 months, I'm very silent because many people have started talking about it, and many people are fighting. Okay, I guess okay now I can chill. I can focus on something else.
What percentage of the current hash rate is being put in by miners who are only mining BIP-110 compliant blocks?
I believe it has increased significantly, but I'm not sure because I was not paying attention because I felt the tides turning and I stopped the focus. So that's
What
why
was the
I'm saying
percentage when you last paid attention?
very few, like 2% or something only.
And when
Two,
was
three,
this? Like 6 months ago?
yeah, probably.
Okay.
And like after that, then every time I open like so before that, some people like me, Luke, Mechanic, and some other very few handful of people we are only talking. Like even I bought a Bitcoin Premium 1 year ago. Sorry, not Premium, like Twitter Premium, X Premium 1 year ago, precisely for this reason. Okay, precisely to get into fights with this, right? So fun times I get, and then yeah, exactly 1 year ago. Okay, and after like the first 3 4 5 months, like it was like I was not focused on anything else. I was only focused on this. Then slowly I started, okay, after the tide turns, enough support has been gained, then I moved away. Then because now right now I want to get into that code development. Okay, I want to focus on my development related Bitcoin knots or lib Bitcoin, or a fork of a lib Bitcoin which has the filters of Bitcoin knots. Okay, so
Fair.
that's kind of my goal. So I right now I'm focused on getting rid of the X addiction right now. Okay, so that's why I'm not so sure with certain terms and certain numbers.
That's completely fine.
Okay,
Delcin, this has been
yeah,
incredible. I
yeah,
I mean, of course, I'm only scratching the surface, but I went from not
exactly.
understanding anything to at least knowing enough to have a conversation with someone.
Yeah, exactly. And this arbitrary, this is the, I mean, out of this all conversation, I want you to be like to have a precise understanding of this. Only when UASF happens, we have like two separate chains. Okay, a money only BIP-110 chain, which focuses Bitcoin on money. So I expect most people to invest in UASF chain. Okay, that is my biased expectation. Okay, and then this important thing. So this many people, like even the core devs, try to conflate BIP-110 something like fighting against spam. No, BIP-110 point is not to fight against spam. It is only to fix the known existing loopholes of arbitrary data storage. That's it.
Okay. I have one last question before we wrap this up.
Hmm.
Why will a miner activated soft fork not result in two separate chains?
No, minus are what? I don't understand. I don't understand.
Why will a miner activated soft fork not result in two separate chains? If a miner, so I'll explain my question. If I'm a
Mhm.
miner and I only mine BIP-110 blocks,
Mhm.
will I be willing to start mining on top of a block? So let's say the latest block is not a BIP-110 block, it's a Bitcoin core block. So it has arbitrary data.
Mhm.
Will a miner
Mhm.
who is BIP-110 compliant be willing to mine on top of a core block?
No.
Then that should also create a soft fork, right?
That's what I said. That's what I said. one when UASF happens, the forks will happen.
But this is not a UASF. This is a minor activated soft
No,
fork.
minor activated soft fork means majority of the miners have already started working on a BIP-110 block. So why BIP-110 chain? So why would a miner will work on top of non-BIP-110 chain? They know that their chain will get rejected by the old blocks, right? It makes no sense for a miner to work on
But what if
on
a
the
minor
contentious.
activated soft fork fails? So you don't get the consensus. You get, let's say, 30% of miners who are willing to mine only BIP-110 blocks. So in that case, you will still end up with two chains,
That's
one
when
with all kinds of blocks and one with only BIP-110 blocks.
that's not, yeah, that's when UASF happens. User activated soft forks. The
No,
nodes
let's
will
not talk about user
the
activated for now. Let's
BIP-110
just
node.
stick to minor activated.
No, if minor activated fails, then UASF happens.
No, I'm not talking about what
If
actually happens in according to BIP-110. I'm conceptually trying to understand if there is only a minor activated soft fork proposal. There is no UASF proposal, okay? Let's say a minor activated soft fork proposal gets 30% of the hash rate. 30% of miners are using that.
Mhm,
Remaining 70% are on the old one. Will that not result in two separate
mhm.
blocks?
No, because there is no UASF, then it won't result in two separate blocks.
So a miner who has forked will be willing to mine on top of an old block as well, on top of a core block, let's say.
Then that's not a fork.
So if they are not willing to mine on top of a core block, then they will end up forking off.
No, no. You have to understand in the term from the terms of a Bitcoin node when you talk about the software forks.
We are talking about a miner activated soft fork right now.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Even minor activated soft fork, you have to think in terms of a Bitcoin node.
Why?
I will explain why. Okay. So Bitcoin node will only follow the longest chain. Sorry, the chain with not the longest chain, the chain with the largest, let's say, hash power. Okay, proof of work.
The most work,
The
yeah.
chain with the largest proof of with the most work. Okay, so if 30% miners are working on a different chain, so that chain won't be accepted by the nodes. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, that's fair. But that will still result in the creation of two chains. The nodes will reject it
No, the
maybe.
node. No, even the folks of BIP 110 nodes will reject it if there is no UASF.
Ah, okay. So that there will be no chain created because no one has accepted it.
Yeah.
Okay, so you
No,
need
if there is
nodes
if there is
to. Yeah, okay, I see what you
if
mean.
there is no UASF, only MASF. If the MASF fails, then the nodes will let's say accept defeat. Even the BIP 110 nodes will accept defeat, and it will only follow the longest proof of chain work network. Sorry, the the blockchain with the largest proof of work. The user activated soft fork is that even if we don't have the majority hash power, we will stay on our fork chain for some time.
Okay, and when it forks, everyone who already has on-chain Bitcoin before the fork, they will have two versions of Bitcoin then, Bitcoin Core and then Bitcoin Knots.
Kind of.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
Okay,
And then now the problem is now the people will say, okay, so if the people wants to the BIP 110 chain to win, they will start investing money on the BIP 110 chain. For example, the mining reward, they will start buying the mining rewards from the BIP 110 chain if they want that to win. If it fails, then fails. Okay, then BIP 110 fails. That's it.
okay, okay. I see, I see. Delson, thank you so much for putting in all this time and effort to explain all these things to me. If people want to find more of your work, where can they go to find it?
My X handle, it is say if you go 6 months before, you can find some significant tweets from me. Okay, so how do I share it? So
You can share it with me off recording and I'll just link it in the
yeah,
show notes.
Yeah, I will share you my X profile and my YouTube channel, which is dedicated primarily to Bitcoin education, both in English and my native language, Tamil.
Okay. Thank you so much for coming on the Bitcoin Dialectic, Delcin.